Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from your respective positions. In international news, Europe is experiencing tremors. We are approaching the Easter holiday. It is a crucial moment for Christians, but it is a time of great fear for Westerners, especially Europeans, who are already anticipating what Russia might do during the Easter holiday in Ukraine. And what the Westerners are announcing that Russia is preparing to do is very serious, ladies and gentlemen. Beyond this aspect, the same fear drives Westerners to try to close ranks, to seek to unite their forces, to combine their resources in order to counter Russia, to try to bring back peace at all costs. In this logic, the US Secretary of State will travel to Paris to meet Emmanuel Macron, then meet other officials, to implement Donald Trump's golden letter aimed at bringing peace back to Ukraine. We wonder, indeed we wonder. We have Donald Trump, who initially had decided to sideline Europe, including France, which he had listened to carefully. Why then suddenly is Donald Trump, America, interested in France? Did France's strategy work? Since France was fighting tooth and nail at all costs to ensure it had a seat at the negotiating table to be involved, what is actually happening? In this video conference about current events, that's what we are going to discuss. But before continuing, as usual, I humbly ask you to share this video conference. It should be shared in all possible groups. Give it lots of likes. That's what it's about. Let's dive deep. Yes, it should be noted that the strike on Sumy resulted in 35 deaths and nearly 130 injured. Europe is not ready to forget this, nor is Ukraine. The very nature of the danger posed by the strike is unprecedented since the beginning of the conflict, and it frightens Ukrainians and neighboring countries. This is why Lithuania is issuing a warning, raising an alert. Lithuania warns about what Russia is going to do in Ukraine on the very day of Easter. You know, the day of the celebration is a day of great gathering. People gather at the church, and then afterwards they meet somewhere to celebrate, to have a feast, to celebrate. Share the blood of Christ, the wine which is the blood of Christ, etc. So Lithuania is sounding the alarm. So, since Russia carried out the strike on Palm Sunday, Lithuania says that the Kremlin took advantage of Palm Sunday to send 2 Iskander missiles. The toll, 35 people at eternal rest, about 100 injured, a vehicle, a real tragedy, and a clear message in the midst of negotiations that are negotiations in name only. So, in response to this, we saw Donald Trump, who had imposed sanctions, etc. He didn't really condemn all of this, but Lithuania is not on the sidelines. And what the Lithuanian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kęstutis Budrys, thinks, he reads this. He reads, "This week is Holy Week. We are approaching Easter. I have no doubt that Russia has something even more terrible in store for us at Easter, since on Palm Sunday, what Russia did, everyone was left speechless. Moreover, it was the day of the celebration. Normally, these festive days are considered to be sabbatical days, days during which the belligerents take a break. But it was quite the opposite that we saw from Russia. Russia did not rest, even though the Orthodox were celebrating, but they sent Iskander. So, Lithuania is sounding the alarm. But Lithuania does not exactly define what it senses Russia is going to do. Lithuania simply says that we should expect something more horrible than what happened on Palm Sunday. Because on Easter, it will be even more crowded than on Palm Sunday. And may God protect us from it indeed. He says this. He says, after the terrorist attack in Sumis on Palm Sunday, we emphasize that this might only be the beginning of even more terrible attacks from the Kremlin, especially on Easter. So on his part, here's what he just said. But on the other side, Volodymyr Zelensky warns. He also alerts the world. On this April 16th, 2025, Zelensky says that the war in Ukraine could escalate into a world war, that it risks escalating into a world war. In an interview he gave to the American show, 60 Minutes, Zelensky warned that the security of the planet is at stake. Are we going to stick to these simple statements since he is used to using such words to encourage people to truly join Ukraine's cause? Or are we really going to take these statements seriously, knowing that the guy, the gentleman, is capable of getting involved in notorious schemes to involve everyone in the war? Is it what needs to be done concretely? In any case, what remains clear is that he says the security of the planet is at stake. Does this stem from a mafia-like organization that he and his allies are preparing? Question mark. So, here is a set of elements that appear in the form of international news, but also push America to change its position. As we said at the beginning of the video conference, America had always insisted and persisted that it did not want to involve Europe in the negotiations. Since the negotiations are on the verge of failing, let's put it that way, it's almost attempting to fail. So, America resorts to turning to Europe. Marco Rubio will be in France. So, this means that this international diplomacy cannot rely on today's statements. As the minutes and hours and days pass, the situation changes and world leaders change their minds. According to official information, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the Special Envoy of President Donald Trump, Steve Witkoff, who is his Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, will travel to Paris, France, from April 16th to 18 for talks with their European counterparts to advance President Donald Trump's goal of ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. During his stay, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will also discuss ways to advance common interests in the region. So, this means that there is a kind of beginning of a small reconciliation between America and Europe, despite the exorbitant customs sanctions, the exorbitant customs taxes that have been imposed on Europe. In any case, they want to renew friendships while seeking to find a solution to the Ukraine problem. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the summary of international news that I ask you to share as much as possible. I will be back shortly by the grace of the Almighty with new news. This was the voice of your one and only Samurai.